Hey guys, it's Yuka. Thank you so much for tuning into the Pretty Pig channel. Today I have a tutorial for you about how to make invisible veggies. So what are invisible veggies, you ask, and why would you want to make them? So the reason I'm making this video for you guys is because a couple weeks ago I had a pretty big revelation. My kids usually really dislike eating veggies. They will take pretty much any veggie that they see on their plate. Like there's a few exceptions that they'll actually eat, but usually they will take it, pick it out, and just refuse to eat it and make a face. So I'm sure if you're watching this video, you might be in the same boat as me and having similar issues with your kids. So that's why I'm making this tutorial about how to make what I'm calling invisible or hidden or disappearing veggies. So I'm going to jump into the tutorial in a second, but before I do, if you could just take 5 seconds to subscribe and like this video, that would of course help me out a lot and help me continue to make helpful videos for you like this. All right, let's get right into the tutorial. And first I'm going to disclose to you that the veggie I am using to make my invisible veggies is cabbage. And you might be wondering why cabbage. And first reason is that I actually really like cabbage. I think it's one of those things when you're young, you just might not be that into it. My mom was always really into cabbage and I never understood it, but now that I am the age I am, which I won't tell you what that age is, I really just enjoy it, and I think it has like a lot of complexity to the flavor. It's also like if you cook it and it's soft enough, it's easy to eat. So I really like it. It also, as you can see here, has a lot of nutrition. A half a cup of cooked cabbage has about 1/3 of your daily vitamin C. It also has fiber, folate, potassium, tons of other vitamins and minerals, and you probably know that it is good for your digestion as well. So overall, cabbage is something that I want my kids to eat, and I think most people do. It's also one of the most disliked, as I mentioned, veggies by kids, so that's why I thought that it would be good for this recipe. But in a second, you'll also see some other reasons why I selected cabbage for my invisible veggie recipe. So the first step is to wash and cut the white part of your cabbage. So just buy some regular cabbage, white cabbage, and wash it. And then what you want to do is just take that center white portion, and it's okay if you get a little bit of the green parts as well. And I was actually wondering if there's any difference in nutrition between the white and the green. I couldn't find anything about it. It seems like the center part, the white part, is still very, very nutritious. So you'll see in a second why I use the white, but take that center part out and then just chop it as finely as you possibly can. And a pro tip, something that has actually helped me with, making hidden veggie and other recipes for my kids, is to use a vegetable mincer. And if you have a food processor, you could use that as well. But I live in a pretty small apartment and I don't have much counter space, so I don't have room for a food processor. So what I do is I just use a small little like veggie mincer mill type thing. It's just manual and it's very easy to use. I'm going to put a link to one that's pretty similar. I think it's a little bit different, but pretty similar to the one that I use in the description. So check that out. And it's also much more affordable than a food processor. So let me show you what that kind of looks like when I'm using that. It's also kind of like satisfying. You can get your stress out by pulling that little, the little lever. Okay, so however you get your veggies or your cabbage minced up, whether it's by hand or using the mincer, you next want to wash white rice. I usually use about 2 cups of white rice, but however much white rice you typically make in your rice cooker or in a pot, wash that amount. And then simply add your cabbage to it, the minced up cabbage. And I don't have any specific amounts here. If you're using about 2 cups of rice, I would use about 1 or 1.5 cups of the cabbage. but really up to you. And you'll also probably see, the amount that your kids kind of notice. The great thing about this recipe for my kids is they have no idea. Like, they literally will eat and not notice any of the cabbage at all. So the 2 cups to 1.5 cups ratio for me works really well. But it's up to your kids. Maybe try with smaller amounts first and then work your way up to larger amounts. Next, step 3, you just steam your rice pretty much the way you would regularly, either in a rice cooker or in a pot. And I actually have a rice cooker that I really like. And like I said, I live in a small apartment, so it takes up so little room on my counter. It's also nice and small, so it's perfect for a smaller family of, 4 people, possibly 5. But it's just nice to have a smaller machine that takes up less room. So I'll also link that below in case you are interested in it. So then wait a little bit for your veggies and your rice to steam. And step 4, once your rice is done, simply open up your rice cooker and fluff your hidden veggie rice. And if you look at this finished product, you can kind of see now, I think, why I selected white cabbage. It blends in so nicely with the rice, and it almost is like it disappeared. So it really is indetectable, like I said, to kids, and that's why this works so well. In terms of the texture, I was afraid at first that, having so much cabbage in there would make the rice kind of fall apart, but it really works so nicely. It just tastes like you're eating pretty much white rice. So the next step is to kind of, fluff it all together and incorporate it, because sometimes the cabbage can kind of float to the top. So just mix it all together. Then step 5 is to plate your rice and pray. So like I said, it kind of depends on, I think, your kids and the ratio of the rice to the cabbage. For me, like I said, the 2 cups rice and 1.5 cabbage works really well. But yeah, it's up to you how much you want to do. So I would say just observe what your kids do and their reaction. And a pro tip for you, my kids like mountain-shaped rice. And what I mean by mountain-shaped rice, I'll show you, is I just take a very small bowl and I pack in the rice into that bowl and then flip it over, and it makes just like a nice mountain shape that I think that they find enjoyable to kind of break down the mountain while they're eating it. It also just looks really nice plated. You might have noticed, professional chefs will use this little trick as well, just to make their food look as presentable as possible. Another pro tip that helps me with my kids is to use furikake. If you're not familiar with furikake, it is like a rice topping that is used by Japanese people, and it can be made out of, sliced fish pieces, seaweed, sesame seeds, all types of yummy stuff, and it's also very colorful, so a lot of times kids like it. And my kids love eating it, and it also helps to disguise your hidden veggies even more. So I just put that on there as well. Another tip is casserole soy sauce. My kids love it, and if you're not familiar with casserole soy sauce, I found out about this from a friend, and I didn't realize that there are so many different types of soy sauce, but casserole soy sauce is a little bit sweet, and it kind of has more viscosity. It's a little thicker than regular soy sauce. So it is so good for, pouring on top of things just to make them more savory. I also use it to marinate things like fish, salmon, and it just has a little bit of that sweetness that makes it so delicious, and viscosity. So it kind of coats things really nicely. So if you have not heard of casserole soy sauce, check it out. I'll put a link to it in the description. And one last bonus tip is, you don't have to limit yourself to just rice for this, right? You could also put the cabbage into pasta. I use it with macaroni and cheese, which my kids adore, especially if it's like the white mac. They really just don't notice that the cabbage is in there. And what you could do, since really the hardest part of this, which isn't even really that hard, is cutting up the lettuce and chopping it, the cabbage and chopping it really small, is you can just make a big batch of it in the beginning of the week or whenever you have time, leave it in the fridge, and almost any meal you make, just throw some of the cabbage in there. And honestly, my kids eat a good amount of cabbage because of this, and they don't even know. So I hope that you found this tutorial about how to make disappearing or hidden veggies helpful. And yeah, thank you for watching. Again, if you like this video, if you thought this was helpful, then please subscribe and like and share the video. And I hope you have a wonderful day and that this was helpful.